solve. First one was, again, what? Yeah, graphing. Not everything graphs. Number 2 was factoring. So if you don't have this down, you have a room now. Then write it down. The 2 forms were G, C, F, and trial and error. Number 3 was, we probably might want to take vertex form. Might be a better method. We call it CTS, complete the square. Number 4, it's very similar to number 3. It is called the square root method. Now, I don't really use this one very much there, Dexter, because it is really the complete the square method. If you take the square root of something, then you're doing the square root method in my brain. But this would mean that there is no bx term. So what they're trying to state here, an example of this would be if you had x squared plus, I'll do a minus sign, minus 13 equals 0. This is method number 4, is doing something like this. How do you solve that? All right, you add the 13. Good job. Then what? Oh, you only take the square root. That is where it is the square root method in this case here. There is no but I don't necessarily think of it that way, because what if you had it as x minus 2 squared minus 13? How would you solve that? The same exact way. There is no difference in my mind on the way these are set up. There is, however, a difference, because this is, in a way, this is really written in standard form as x squared minus 4x minus 21. This is what standard form would look like, and you would have to convert it into vertex form to get to that. That's the difference between number 3 and number 4, just so you guys know. If there's no bx term, then you can go straight to the square root. Okay, that's what they call it. All right, number 5. Anybody know number 5? That's right. It is the quadratic formula. Now, when we're solving, what are the 4 different words that we can use for solving? Find the roots. Find the x-intercept. I heard zeros. What's the other one? Solutions. So all of those words mean the same thing. All right. So I'm going to write this next part down. We're going to go through deriving this pretty quickly to save a little bit of time to get into the meat of what we're trying to learn today. We're going to derive the quadratic formula. What form am I in right now? Standard. So I have to complete the square. So if I have ax squared plus bx, I would write small if you were going to write all this down, plus blank plus c minus blank. If you want to not write this down and just watch, you can. Okay? Or you can follow along and answer out what we would do next. Just really kind of just follow along would be good. So the next part is setting these parentheses up, right? What's wrong with this part? Got to remove the a. And so when I remove the a, I get x squared plus b over a. Good job, Lakota. Like it. So what's going to be happening over here? Got to put the a. All right, now we can take half of b over a. I think Lakota's trick would be better. Lakota, how would you take half of b over a? B over 2a? Because you're multiplying by a half, right? And that would end up being squared. Does that make sense, guys? Now, when we multiply BA times BA, or B over 2A and B over 2A, we get what? B squared over 4A squared. You see that, Reese? And this ends up being B squared all over 4A squared. Now, I gave you a trick just a few minutes ago that we can take these factors apart. You see these down here? You see that's A squared? I can rewrite that as what? A times A. So if that's A times A, what can you do with the A over A right here? Cancel out. That's what I want to make sure you can see that. So I'm going to rewrite this whole thing right here. I'm going to rewrite it as plus C, and I'm going to go ahead and write minus B squared all over 4A right there. Okay? You see that, Autumn? It's not too bad, was it? Now, what's written in red here, Ronnie, I have to add those together. What's wrong with C? Yeah, so I need a 4A on the bottom and a 4A on top. Does that make sense? And we can do that trick and rewrite this all over what? Yeah, we can write this all over 4A. So I'm just going to write that all over 4A just to clean it up a little bit. Anybody know what form we're in now? That is your vertex form. So pause and digest this for a second. Here's something really cool there, Gavin. If I gave you like y is equal to like 3x squared minus 5x plus 7, I said, hey, give me this in vertex form. You could just memorize this little thing I got in the box right here. And you can plug in your A, your B, and your C. See that, Vincent? You want to memorize that? Yeah, that's the reason why we don't teach that, okay? But in this case here, to start this one off, to write it, you go, what, 3, and then you have a parentheses and an X, and then we would do plus, and then we put B, which is negative 5, all over 2A, which is 6, and then we would put it squared, and then we can carry on doing the rest of that over there. But you can see right there, look at this, it's the beginning part of that, where we already kind of got it in vertex. You could actually memorize that and plug it in, and it would do your vertex. Nobody wants to memorize that, so we don't teach it, okay? So, now, to solve this, we have to set it equal to what? 0. So what are we going to do with this whole thing? You got to move to the other side. You got to subtract it, okay? So that is going to turn into this real quick. I'm going to save a little bit of space. I'm going to put this in a parentheses. I'm going to put a minus sign out front, and I'm going to fix this a little bit. And put an equal sign right here. If you want to write your new line, that's what it would look like. And this equal sign will go, equal 0 go away. You good with me, Autumn? So this is the next solve right here. Boom. So what are we going to do with that negative sign? Distributed. So let's rewrite this as b squared minus 4ac. So I just switched the locations. So the b squared is in the front, the minus 4ac in the back, and put the 4a over this right here. With me, Lakota? Makes sense? So how do I get rid of that a in the front? Ooh, multiply by 1 over a gives that a squared on the bottom, right? Does it make sense? So now we're here. You know what's next, don't you? Piecewise is coming up in it. Square root, square root, square root. Absolute value of x plus b over 2a equals the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, this is supposed to be like a plus or minus a, but it will disappear when we actually do our absolute value over here, so it doesn't really matter, okay? So it kind of goes away. So we have a piecewise we're going to have to write, and then as you can tell, that's going to change two equations, right? We're going to get a positive equation and a negative equation. Just go ahead and shorten it out. What will you do with the b over a? Subtract it to the other side. What did we just figure out? Quadratic formula. Hey, Lakota, you don't have to memorize it, okay? If you know how to complete this square and solve it, you can have your quadratic formula anytime you want. You just have to do everything we just did. Back in 2011, when I started teaching Algebra 2, this was on every test we gave for like 3 years straight. He said, here, standard form, write it down. Good luck. Was not fun. Hey, it wasn't fun to grade, let me tell you that much. It was, it was heartbreaking, Vincent. It was really. Yeah, the thing is, Vincent, I even warned the kids. I said, hey, this is going to be on your test. You're going to have to derive this from your standard form. Here, I'm going to do it for you. All you have to do is go home and write this down 10 times, practice it, and you'll be good. No, nobody did that. And I don't necessarily blame them. That's like, why? You know, I asked the question why too, but at that time, we had our Algebra 2 was our honors. Like, we're like, you know, this is it. You know, like, it was tough on a lot of kids. It really was. All right. So that being said, let's go in and use it. All right. Now, first thing we have to do is practice this. Do you know your quadratic formula? That's the question. If you don't know it, you need to write it down every single time. If you do know it, you probably need to write it down every single time. Because if you kind of, I know it, but you don't really know it, you just shot yourself in the foot. Because I have a lot of students who write this down and they go negative b, they forget the negative sign. They write this as a 2b and then they miss minus 4ac. They mess that up. They have no idea. Sometimes they just put 4c down. Sometimes they put 4a down. They mess it up royally. Guys, you're brighter than that. Make sure you know it. You will not have this on your test. Okay? So b squared minus 4ac. Got to know it. The angry bull who could not decide if the square dance be the bull was a little square, missed out on 4 awesome cows. Remember, it's 4 awesome cows. Ate 2 apples, ate 2 apples. All right, so know this, write it down, and we're going to use it. Now, what is A, Autumn, in this problem? A is equal to 1. What's B? Negative 4. And C? 4. Now, notice she almost said 4 for the B, and this happens a lot. She corrected herself because she knew the sign, that sign goes with it, Jace. All right? I have a lot of students who forget that, and they're on their test. They just put 4, and they're going to screw it up. Don't do that. Don't be that student, okay? Good job. Now we're going to plug it in. Now I'm going to go through the process, and some people mess it up. They don't follow the process. I have it separated for a reason. Okay? We'll go about that on Monday or Tuesday of next week. We'll talk about it a little bit more. I've already talked about it in there anyway. But, guys, it helps with your order of operations as well. All you have to do is go X and the opposite of B. That is what that says. Find me the opposite of B. What's the opposite of B? Positive 4. Mental math at 2 times the A. unless it's a fraction. Okay? A sometimes will end up being 1/2 or 1/3. Then you would need to probably write it down. Okay? But if it's a regular integer, just do it in your head. It's just 2. Put your plus or minus down. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to do this in your head. B squared. Do it in your head. Now, this is what happens all the time. They write it down. Camden and I have students who write it down, and they're not listening or they're asleep or whatever, and they go like that, and they give me what? What's the mistake they're going to give me? -16. It is not -16. We are squaring the -4. It is always going to be positive. That b squared will always be a positive number. Okay? So I'm going to put a positive 16. I'm just going to do it in my head. I'm going to write 16 down. I'm going to even write the negative down. Now, you're going to put the minus sign for sure for the next part. I'm going to write down the 4. I'll probably go ahead and put in parentheses 1 in the positive 4. I don't know. There's a habit of mine. I just do that. All over 2. That's pretty easy because it's the same 2 that's over there. The next piece. This is where my students fall apart. They try to say 16 minus 4 is 12 and go through there. No. Order of operations, guys. We have to do everything to the right of the b squared next. You are multiplying all of those numbers together. What's in blue we're going to do? All right, which is -16. So I'm going to get 16 minus 16, which gives us a total of 0. So that means this whole thing is 0. So what happens to my plus or minus? Goes away. I'm adding nothing, subtracting nothing, so I have just 2 as my answer. I may ask this question to Vincent. How many solutions do I have? He's saying 2, but he's guessing 2, or is he saying 2 for sure?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of 2s.
Yeah, there is a lot of 2s. X equals 2 is right there. I end up with only one visible solution. Okay? So, question is, what happened? We know there's 2 because there's what? There's a degree of 2. It's a quadratic. It has to have 2 solutions. Now, what's unfortunate is the state will tell you there's only one solution here. If I ask you how many solutions they have, they would say 1 real solution. And I would say, no, it says there's 2. Let's factor this real quick before we move on. What would that factor to? Oh. Now do you see it? So x is equal to 2 and x is equal to 2. So there is 1 double solution. 1 double solution. All right? It happens to be there. What did we know about this part yesterday anyway? What do we know? X equals -b over 2a. What is that? That's your axis of symmetry. So that is this. Ronnie, what is on the axis of symmetry? What important point is on the axis of symmetry? The y part of the vertex, or the vertex itself is on there. Correct. So if the vertex is on your axis of symmetry, then what's my vertex? 2, 0. This is the vertex. There's no distance. Guys, remember, this is talking about my distance from my axis of symmetry. I have no distance from my axis of symmetry. It's not to the right of it, to the left of it. It is it. So this is your picture of your parabola. The word we use here, and you will be using, is a bounce. My graph is bouncing at that spot, okay? So we use that word bounce all the way through calculus. All right, so let's do one more of these, all right? and figure out what happens in part B. So A is 1, B is 2, and C is 1. So let's go ahead and work out. Yes. Yes. So X is equal to, you have your quadratic formula? Negative B over 2A, plus or minus? Write it down every time, Jace. Write it down every time, Gavin. All right? Camden. You need to have this memorized. You should already have it memorized. I'm probably in the thousands of times I've written this down. Okay? I would assume I'm in the thousands. I don't think 10,000, less than 10,000. But I'm definitely in the thousands. Algebra 2, yes. I don't know about 10,000 times. A lot. I don't think I write it down 1,000 times each year. I don't think it's that. But I write it down. It's my own hell. Okay? Yeah. When I die, I'm going to be like, negative B over 2A. No. No. All right. So X is equal to negative 2 all over 2 plus or minus 4 minus 4 times 1 all over 2 again. Again, what's here gets multiplied first. I'm going to get 4 minus 4, which is 0. So X is equal to negative 1 again. Right here. So it ends up being a parabola. M-axis symmetry is right here. That's a horrible picture. It needs to be a little bit more curved. All right. One double solution. All right, moving to part B. Here we go. Do it all over again. Write your quadratic formula down. Your destiny is to write the quadratic formula 1,000 times. So X equals negative B over 2A plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. All right, here you go. A is 1, B is 2, C is negative 15. Pause for you to catch up. So, what is the, what we're going to write down next? Jason, what's the opposite of B? Yeah, that's right, negative 2 over 2A is 2. No calculator. See that, Autumn? No calculator. You will not have a calculator on the test. Well, there'll be a calculator section, but it won't be doing this. All right, now, minus or plus the square of B is 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 15 all over 2 again. So what'd you find this out to be there, Autumn? What's circled in red? That is 60. That is a plus 60 right there. So that gets you a total of 64. And we know 64 is really 8. So we're going to x equals -1 plus or minus 8 over 2, which we could write that as what? 4. And I'm going to separate it into two different equations. They're conjugates of each other. -1 plus 4 and -1 minus 4. Do you have any questions on that? Three, -5. There's my parabola. What do you notice? What do you think? All right. Let's move on to the next one. X equals. Reese, what's the quadratic formula, man? I think this is what you said, but I don't think it was in the order I usually write it. But that's it. All right. You're good. I don't care. As long as you have it written down and you know it. So x is equal to what number over what number? -8 over 4. Yes? What? No, we're not going to. But yeah, you could. Her point here is, could you pull out a GCF and make this smaller numbers and you can work from there? Yes, you could. Okay? And it's actually probably a really good thing when you use a quadratic formula. Okay? The smaller the numbers, the better they will be. But no, I'm not going to. What's plus or minus the square root e squared? Ignore this. 64 minus 4 times 2 times 24. Whoop. Messed up. Minus 24. Would that sign make was that sign error important? Yeah, that's like the most important thing. All right, now I'm multiplying these three numbers together. Now, it made more sense to go ahead and pull the 2 out, make it smaller. You had GCF, but we didn't do that. So in this case, we're going to have to deal with these numbers. Anybody know what negative times a negative is? Yeah, that's a positive. So it's 64 plus, and then we got to do 8 times 24. What is 8 times 24? You know what 8 times 20 is? 160. And what is 8 times 4? 32. Can you put 160 and 32 together? 190. Anybody know what 192 plus 64 is? Take 8 away from 64 is all you need to do. $256 is correct. This is the square root of 256 over 4. 256 reduces to what? 16. It is a perfect square. So it gives me 4, right? So I'm going to get x is equal to -2 plus 4, and x is equal to -2 minus 4. 2 and -6. What do you notice? Dakota's really, she's really not going to say anything yet. Not yet. Right? You good? You don't see the pattern yet? If it's not emerging yet, that's okay. I don't think anybody sees it yet. Yeah. There are 8 units. Yeah. Yeah. That's not really what we're looking for, but pretty observant. I like it. I had somebody in A block shout out something. He saw the pattern above the pattern that I needed to see. You saw a different pattern. It's not really what I need to be. All right, let's go on to part C. What do you got, Lakota? You're getting there. Yeah. I like it. Let's do 1 or 2 of these. You might see the difference between these and the ones we just did. You might pull it all together. I want you to kind of see this. It doesn't always help to tell you everything and show it all. All right, so we still know the quadratic formula. Reese says, there you go. All right, so you still know it. We're still going to use it. A is equal to -1, and B is equal to 2, and C is equal to -2. All right, so it was interesting because A block, I did part A, part B, part C. In B block, I screwed up. I went A, and it jumped to C. We did a double skip, and they were like confused. They were all over the place. So I was like, oh. So you guys are getting a better show. All right, now, so we have part C here. We're going to do x equals the opposite of B all over the opposite, or 2a, which is -2, plus or minus the square root. B squared is what? 4. I'm going to do this in red so you can see it. So -4 times -1 times -2. So what's in red I want to do next? All over to -2 again. So my B block class had a little bit of problem seeing this, but guys, if I have a plus or minus sitting here, and I have a -1 right here, and I was going to multiply these together, what would you get? I'm up here in the corner up here. What is plus times a -1? What would be a -1 times a -1? So my plus minus is now a what? Minus plus. You do not have to change that. You can still leave it plus minus. So this negative sign right here is a mute point. The negative on the bottom over here on the right side disappears. Does that make sense? Do you see it, Reese? There it is. You see it? Watch it. Watch this. Watch this. It's gone. Reese, but why? Look. That's a negative times a positive is a negative. A negative times a negative is a positive. It goes away. You can just go ahead and drop it. You cannot drop this side over here. There's no plus or minus on the left one, right? But on this 2a, you can drop it. So it's gone. Okay? Just goes away. All right, so what's in red here, guys? So that's 4 minus 8. What's that give you? Square root of -4. What's that? 2i. So I'm going to get x equals -1 over -2 over -2 is positive 1. And I get a plus or minus 2i over 2. Anybody know what that's going to turn into? 1 plus or minus just I. So we're here at -2. It's flipped over, so it's going to look like this. Interesting. What's going on here? How many solutions do I have? So there are 2 solutions. Anything special about them? What's special about these 2 solutions? What's that I stand for there, Dexter? They're 2 imaginary solutions. What about this side over here? Part B. How many solutions do I have? 2 real solutions. We actually have to determine in states they are real in the situation. Because this one has 2 imaginary solutions. Now, over here we have what? 1 double solution. How do we know we had double solutions? From the quadratic formula. How do we know? Someone said Autumn, what did you say? Nope. When the square root underneath the square root is what? 0. How do we know this one? What do we notice about these numbers? Not perfect squares. The word I want to use, and it's unfortunate they end up being perfect squares, and that's what we were talking about in A block. They went above and beyond. They saw it was, I'm looking for it if it's positive. If the square root is positive, then we have 2 real solutions. Part C. What's that? Negative. It makes sense here that would mean that there are 2 what? Imaginary solutions. Okay? So, the whole idea here, and we go ahead and do this next one. If we do this next one, we will end up with an I situation again. So, our key today is, you got your square root, correct? It's really important that you understand this part. This is the whole key to this thing. If this right here, if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, how many solutions do you have? Yep, but we call it what? 1 double solution. The state will call it 1 solution. Okay? If you're on a state exam, they say, how many solutions you have? They're going to go, 1. That's all they're going to say. Okay? The other scenario the state will give you is b squared minus 4ac if it's greater than 0. Which means what's happened to b squared minus 4ac? What does this mean? What is greater than 0? Your positive numbers, so that means you have 2. Whoops. The word would be real solutions. Okay? 1 more. B squared minus 4AC is less than 0. That's when this means that when B squared minus 4AC is negative, you have 2 imaginary solutions. Now, just so you guys know, the state exam will only represent those. Because the state exam will not recognize what numbers? Imaginary numbers. Quite unfortunate. It really is. Okay? It's not difficult to say, hey, something's less than 0, that we have imaginary numbers. Well, why is that? Guys, when I take the square root of a negative number, it makes sense. When I take the square root of a negative number, I get an I. It automatically imaginary, right? So the way these questions will be on your test, this is called a discriminant. Your discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Vincent, that is what the discriminant is on the next page. The discriminant is this piece right here. That's what we call it. It tells us how many. Unfortunately, that is not the truth. And it tells you and types, right, of solutions. Guys, how many solutions does a quadratic have? It's always 2. Unfortunately, that is not. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell us that and this. We already know it has 2. It only tells us the types. What are your types? 1, double, 2 real, or 2 imaginary. Okay? Those are the types of solutions you have. 2 imaginary, 2 real, 1 double. They're all representing 2. So this is the way it works, Camden. It's really simple. I'm going to give you this equation right here. I'm going to say, what types of solutions? I didn't even have to ask how many because it should be just 2. So in this case here, what types of solutions is this? Well, you would go, that is just b squared minus 4ac, and you would write that down and then go 9 minus 4 times 2 times 6. And you go multiply all this together, which is 8 times 6, 48. You do 9 times minus 48, and you would get minus 37. And what'd you say? What would your answer be? 2 imaginary solutions. That's how fast that could be, or should be. This one here, you go b squared minus 4ac. Again, let's do it real quick. 25 minus 4 times 1 times negative 2. 25 plus 8, 33. 2 real solutions. Now, guys, I know that it really doesn't matter what these numbers are. Okay? As long as you know they're positive or negative, would be suffice. But we do ask for that number. So we know you're doing it correctly rather than just guessing. So we will say, hey, what's the value of b squared minus 4ac? What types of solutions do you have? Because how many doesn't really matter since you already know these are your types. It will be asked on our